What is up, guys, and welcome back to the 13th episode of The Witcher lore. Today we are going to be talking about the moment where the White Wolf fell head over heels for the raven-haired sorceress Yennefer of Wengenberg. One of my personal favorite stories. The moment that basically solidified Yennefer as a fan favorite forever. Solidified her position among the top, in my opinion. I'm so excited, man, because I don't get to talk about Yennefer a lot in these videos, but whenever I do, man, I feel like I get that much more excited. And the funny thing is that when a long time ago, when I first decided I wanted to do these Witcher stories, or these Witcher videos, this particular story was like one of the first things I jotted down as something I wanted to talk about. But I think over time, I kind of psyched myself out of it. I kept telling myself that this is a story that people already probably know, and my main goal for making these videos in the first place is to tell you guys about events or specific moments in the saga that I feel like is not really known too much, right? So I felt like doing a story that is rather well known is kind of betraying that, but then over time, I've kind of warmed up to the idea, so yeah, this is why this video is happening. For the longest time, I really didn't want to do it, but here we are, here we are. And the exciting thing is that I've done this is now my 13th video doing this, and there's still so much more to talk about. There's still so many stories and major events and even small little things that I haven't talked about yet that I can't wait to get to. So yeah, of course, that's in the future for sure. But today, like I said, we're talking about the first time that Geralt of Rivia met Yennefer of Wengenberg. It is a very funny story. Involves Dandelion. Involves a genie. And yeah, very excited to get into this. This does eventually kind of pave the way to for Ciri to come into the story, which is always awesome. But I thought it would be a really nice opportunity to kind of see where, or I should say, how these characters met in the first place. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So we begin this story with Geralt and Dandelion traveling together on the road yet again. This time the two of them are fishing at this lake, and they're having a pretty difficult time trying to reel in this huge catfish. And you have the two of them arguing with each other because Geralt is like, Dandelion, you need to loosen your grip a little bit or else the line is going to snap. And Dandelion is just like not even paying him any attention. He's just like pulling as hard as he can, like trying to get the fish out. So obviously the line does end up snapping because Dandelion is pulling just like way too hard on it. And Geralt's just like, see, I told you it was going to snap. So naturally the two end up getting in this heated debate, essentially just throwing insults at each other, shifting the blame on one another. Geralt, of course, reminding him that, hey, if you would have listened to me, we would probably be eating right now. And Dandelion, of course, not accepting responsibility for what he did, and instead he's kind of like pushing the blame on Geralt, which he typically does, right? So yeah, and then after that, we have Dandelion noticing that a second line that they had put into the lake is actually getting a bite, that it actually caught something. So Dandelion runs over to pull whatever the line had caught out of the water, and he's like really happy about it. He's like, Geralt, look! And Geralt's like, you're exaggerating. It's just like ropes and excuse me, a clump of ropes. There's some algae in the net and a little bit of crabs, but the most important thing, the kind of most important thing that they had captured in their little haul was a little jar. And Dandelion, of course, he's just all excited about it. He's like, hey Geralt, look what I found. And Geralt, of course, he's just like, it's just a pot. And Dandelion is like, you're wrong. This is a charmed jar. There's a djinn inside who will fulfill my 3 wishes. And Geralt just snorts. And Dandelion's like, well, you can laugh, but there's a seal on the spigot and a wizard's mark on the seal. So then Geralt walks over to investigate, and Dandelion essentially is just like, no, it's mine, get away. I'm the one who found it, so all 3 of these wishes belong to me. And Geralt's just like, you better not touch that seal, leave it alone. Let go, I tell you, it's mine. Dandelion, be careful. Oh sure, Geralt. Don't touch it, for fuck's sakes, Dandelion. So the jar ends up dropping onto the floor, and the genie bursts out of his jar. Smoke begins pulsating everywhere, and it collects into this like little spear shape. Basically, imagine like what it looked like in the side quest, the last mission from Wild Hunt. Basically, looks exactly like that. It levels right in front of Dandelion's eyes, and Dandelion, of course, being the idiot he is, proceeds to try to have a conversation with it. He's like, Jinn, I have freed you from your jar, and from this day onward, I am your lord. My wishes, so he begins reciting his 3 wishes, while Geralt is in the background. He's like, run, you idiot, run. And Dandelion's like, my wishes are as follows. Firstly, may Valdo Marx, the troubadour of Sedaris, die of apoplexy as soon as possible. Secondly, there's a count's daughter in Calf called Virginia who refuses all advances, so may she succumb to mine. And thirdly, unfortunately, no one ever found out what Dandelion's 3rd wish was, because the djinn basically starts attacking him like crazy. So Geralt doesn't really know what to do in this situation. He rushes over for his sword, and that doesn't really do anything. He sends a blast of Ard at the djinn. It doesn't do anything again. So he improvises, and he grabs the seal that was on the jar of the djinn, and he points it at the djinn, and he screams out this random exorcism that he was taught by a priestess. And he screams it at the djinn, and the djinn just kind of stops what it's doing, and then just like runs in the other direction. It just gets away from Geralt and Dandelion. So Geralt's like, oh, thank God. I don't know what the hell I just did, but it's gone, so we'll worry about it later, right? So he rushes over to Dandelion, who's like on the floor, like all curled up, and he looks like he's really hurt, right? And Geralt's like, what's wrong? And Dandelion tries to scream, but nothing comes out. And there's even a point where he actually starts like coughing up and vomiting blood, and Geralt's like, oh shit, dude. So then yeah, he curses, and he takes Dandelion on his horse, and they head over to the nearest town to where hopefully they can find some help. So Geralt and Dandelion make their way to the nearest town of Rind, with Dandelion on the back, basically just like all curled up, and he's coughing up blood, and he looks really bad, and he just looks like he's in pain, and he's having a terrible time, right? So they kind of gallop to the front gate of the city, and there's some guards there, and Geralt's like, you see how bad this man is, right? Please let us through. We need to find a healer. And the guards unfortunately have these orders that they're not allowed to have, or they're not allowed to let anyone enter the city at night. So Geralt's basically shit out of luck. He can't bring Dandelion inside the city to search for a healer, but the guards do say that we'll let you into this little kind of quarters, or like some little house that is outside of the gates, where you can stay for the night, and then in the morning you can enter the city. So Geralt's like, okay, that's fine. So he ends up going inside of this little house where he meets an elf named Chitterin. I'm probably butchered his name, but they meet this elf who kind of helps Dandelion a little bit, tends to him, and him and Geralt are talking, and he basically tells Geralt that like his vocal cords are shot, man. Like maybe he'll be able to talk again, but sing, he'll probably never be able to sing again in his life. And Geralt is kind of like taken aback by that. He's like, fuck, like Dandelion not being able to sing. I mean, this like he is a troubadour. His career like rests on him being able to sing and tell stories, right? So if you take that, you know, important facet of his life away from him, like, is there really any point of carrying on for him without being able to sing? So yeah, it's like Geralt's like, damn, dude, like really. Now, one of the people that's staying in this house tells Geralt that there is a sorceress staying in the town, and that your only hope for possibly getting Dandelion to sing again is to seek out her help. He describes the sorceress as somewhat of a individualist. Right now she's ignoring this boycott that's imposed on the city because there's this huge boycott in Rhine currently, on wizards and sorceresses and sorcerers and things like that. And she's doing rather splendidly out of it. The boycott means that there's tremendous demand for magical services here, and of course the sorceress isn't paying any levies. The sorceress is staying with a merchant, a trade broker from Novigrad, who is also the honorary ambassador. Nobody can touch her there. She has asylum. And it's also important to note that the kind of like counselors and some of the people in Rhine absolutely despise Yennefer. That they're like making up these really bad rumors about her. They're trying to turn anybody they can against her. They're also trying to like tarnish her reputation. Also for, you know, all for the purpose of this merchant that she's staying at, who belongs to Novigrad. Like their hopes is that the Novigrad hierarchy will come in and kind of like take away her asylum. They will like forbid the merchant from giving her asylum, because as long as she is with this merchant, basically nobody can touch her. So these counselors are hoping that they can get this asylum taken away from her, so then they can just like vultures coming at a like carcass, basically they can just come at her freely, right? But as long as she has this asylum, she's good. So Geralt basically says that he doesn't like meddling and things like that, but right now he doesn't really have any other choice. So as soon as the gates open in the morning, he'll go find the sorceress, and then he says, what's the sorceress's name? And then the elf says, Yennefer of Vengenberg. And for me, like, I've actually read the Witcher books out of order. I didn't read The Last Wish until close to the end, actually. I actually started with Sword of Destiny, and then I went all the way up to Tower of Swallows, and then I read Last Wish, and then I read Lady of the Lake. But when I went back to read The Last Wish, and just getting to that part where the first time Yennefer's name is mentioned, just that Yennefer of Vengenberg, like, just gave me absolute chills, man. Like, it is so cool to me. So Geralt eventually finds the house of this Novigrad merchant where Yennefer is currently staying at. When he actually gets to the house, there's this kind of like guard who's kind of protecting the front door and not letting anybody in. Even to Geralt, he's like, no, I can't let you inside. The master is currently sleeping. And Geralt basically just takes out like this coin purse, and the doorman at first believes, oh, you're gonna try to bribe me? And Geralt's like, nope. And he just like hits the guy over the head with this like huge bag of money. So yeah, he does that, and then he just like steps right in. So once inside, Geralt ends up meeting the Novigrad merchant Beau Barant. I probably butchered that, but whatever. He ends up meeting the merchant, and this guy is like acting very panicked and like just very frantic right now. Like he's mumbling to himself, apple juice, I have to bring her apple juice. She wants apple juice, right? And Geralt's just kind of like really confused, and he's like, I beg your pardon? Like he doesn't know what the hell is going on right now. And the guy tells him, listen, in that barrel over there, there's apple juice. Pour it into something and help me get upstairs, alright? So Geralt ends up getting the apple juice, but the merchant ends up falling asleep. So then Geralt goes upstairs to deliver the apple juice to Yennefer himself. And this is when we have the very first meeting between these two characters. Geralt makes his way to Yennefer's bedroom, and once he gets there, he finds kind of like these slippers and stockings kind of like sprawled out on the floor. He finds a black dress with white frills, kind of just discarded on top of a chair. And Geralt's like walking in, and he kind of gets embarrassed because, you know, obviously, you know, her clothes are just like all over the floor. And he actually, like, in his head, he's like, I should probably turn the other way and just walk right down the stairs. Like, what am I getting myself into right now? And I really like just how in-depth Sapkowski goes with Yennefer's, just like, we haven't even seen her yet, but just like, we're still getting a really in-depth description of like, kind of a feel of what this character is all about, and like some of the major facets of her character. So like, this is the first time we get introduced to like her preference with clothing, right? The black and white, you know, she's known for always wearing black and white, right? Also, we know she really loves her apple juice, right? This is the first time we get to kind of find that out. And then of course, when Geralt enters the room, the smell of lilac and gooseberries just like penetrates his nostrils, right? And that's like probably, I would say, the most iconic, or I guess I should say one of the most iconic things about her character, because on top of, you know, getting to hear about the lilac and gooseberry scent for the first time, we also get introduced to, now that I think about it, the most distinguishable thing about her character is the raven colored hair. This is the first time we get that description of her locks being the color of a raven. And then we also get to see that her eyes are the color of violet as well. So I really like that the moment we meet this character, it's just like she immediately stands out to Geralt, right? Like, he's noticing all these things about her, and I think just from the moment that he's like, everything that he's picking up on, from the apple juice to seeing her eyes to seeing her hair, to noticing the scent of her perfume, to noticing her clothes, and just like the particular colors that she's wearing, like, just from that moment alone, you can already tell that this man is infatuated with her already. So Yennefer is laying in her bed, and keep in mind that she, like, in her bed, it's a really huge bed with like these 4 posts. And it's kind of like in a dome shape, and it has these kind of like very thin curtains around it, right? So she can't really see who just entered the room, and Geralt as well, like, he can't really get a clear picture as well. So when she does hear that someone has just entered the room, she assumes that it's the merchant Beau Barant, and she actually, you know, says, Beau, is that you? Did you bring the juice? And Geralt's just like, yeah, here you go. And she takes the juice immediately. She's like, oh man, I've been dying of thirst. She thanks him, and then she kind of comes out of the like curtain. And Geralt like kind of like averts his eyes because she's basically like naked, or I believe she puts on a robe, but she's pretty, you know, like, she doesn't really have a lot of clothes on at the moment. So Geralt, of course, being the gentleman he is, kind of turns away a little bit. And she's like, who are you? What are you doing here? And where is Beau Barant? And Geralt, I love his response to this, man. Because she just like immediately just attacks him with like 3 different questions, right? And Geralt's like, which question do you want me to answer first? And we know Yennefer. We know she is not going to respond to this kindly at all. She's not going to take sarcasm from a person she's never met before, or even her friends, right? She's not going to sit down and just take this, right? So, she just immediately throws a magic blast at Geralt. Geralt very instinctively holds up his hands and uses a spell to kind of shield himself. but the spell still, Yennefer's spell still ends up, like, it sends Geralt flying, basically, against the wall, and then he just kind of, like, sags down to the floor. So then Geralt's on the floor, he's like, stop, like, there's no need, Lady Yennefer, like, I come in peace, I'm not gonna hurt you, I'm not here to do anything evil to you. And Geralt eventually stands up, but with, like, difficulty, because the spell obviously left him with a little bit of pain. He stands up, and Yennefer starts, like, observing him, like, very quietly. She's narrowing her eyes at him. She tells him, "You were able to parry my spell. You're not a sorcerer, that's obvious, but you reacted exceptionally fast. Tell me who you are, stranger, who has come in peace, and I advise you to speak quickly." "I'm Geralt of Rivia, a witcher." Yennefer leaned out of bed, grasping a fawn engraved on the pole by a piece of anatomy well adapted to being grasped. Without taking her eyes off of Geralt, she picked a coat with a fur collar up from the floor and wrapped herself up in it tightly before getting up. She poured herself another mug of juice without hurrying and drank it in one go. She coughed and came closer. Geralt discreetly rubbed his lower back, which a moment ago had collided painfully with the wall. "Geralt of Rivia," repeated the sorceress, looking at him from behind black lashes. "How did you get in here, and for what reason? You didn't hurt Barant, I hope?" "No, I didn't, Lady Yennefer. I need your help." "A witcher," she muttered, coming up even closer and wrapping the coat around herself even more tightly. "Not only is it the first one I've seen up close, but it's none other than the famous White Wolf. I've heard about you." "I can imagine." "I don't know what you can imagine." She yawned and came even closer. "May I?" She touched his cheek and looked him in the eyes. He clenched his jaw. "Do your pupils automatically adapt to light, or can you narrow and dilate them according to your will?" "Yennefer," he said calmly. "I rode non-stop all day from Rind. I waited all night for the gates to open. I gave your doorman, who didn't want to let me in, a blow to the head. I disturbed your rest, all because my friend needs your help. And it's a help that only you can give it, so please give it to him. And then, if you like, we can talk about my mutations and my aberrations." "What sort of help do you mean?" So then Geralt tells her the story of him and Dandelion meeting the Djinn and what the Djinn ended up doing to Dandelion. And before he continues the story, however, she's like, wait, I need to take a bath first, and so do you. So the two of them move to the bathhouse, and before they do so, I really like this little paragraph that Yennefer says before the two of them head over to take a bath. Because Geralt, of course, he's very hesitant about it. He's like, Yennefer, listen, like, my friend, like, time is of the essence right now, right? Like, Dandelion is suffering. I would like to get this done as soon as possible. Like, I don't have time for a bath, right? And Yennefer basically tells him that she climbed out of bed specifically for him, and she did not intend to do that until the middle of the day. She was prepared to do without breakfast. Do you know why? Because you brought me the apple juice. You were in a hurry, your head was troubled with your friend's suffering, you forced your way in here, and yet you thought of a thirsty woman. You won me over, so my help is not out of the question, but I won't do anything without hot water and soap. Go, please." "Very well." We move to the bathhouse, and both Yennefer and Geralt are wrapped in towels. Yennefer does take a very keen interest in Geralt's body. She's like noticing all the scars on his chest, and you know, she's just like smiling. She's like, "Oh, a beautiful scar. How did you get that?" You know, things like that. So Geralt, like, we've already kind of seen this a little bit earlier in this story, but Geralt is kind of getting embarrassed seeing the lack of clothes that Yennefer currently is wearing. So, you know, obviously they need to talk about, you know, what happened to Dandelion and whatnot. Geralt proposes, "I can just, you know, turn away from you while you go and take a bath," but Yennefer says that she needs to look the person that she's talking to in the eyes, that she's talking to, right? So she then makes herself invisible so Geralt doesn't get embarrassed seeing her naked in the bath. But then at the same time, he's like, "Well, now I can't see your eyes, Yennefer." And Yennefer just kind of snorts a little bit. She's like, "Whatever, like, I don't care what you need to see." So After that, he continues his story of what happened with the djinn, and Yennefer asks him, okay, so how were you able to stop the djinn? And Geralt tells her by reciting this kind of exorcism, this incantation, and Yennefer's like, which one did you say? And Geralt recites it to her, and he was the funny thing is that Geralt was expecting her to be impressed by him even knowing this incantation, but instead all he heard was just laughter from the bathtub. And he's like, what's so funny? And she's like, that exorcism of yours. Where did you learn that? And then she also mentions Triss for the first time. She says, man, if Triss heard this, she would be dying right now. And yeah, so then she's like, who taught you that incantation? And Geralt's like, a priestess from Holger's sanctuary. It's a secret language of the temple. Secret to some, Yennefer replied. That wasn't an incantation, Geralt. Nor would I advise you to repeat those words in any other temples. What was it if not an incantation? A witty saying, if rather indecent. And then he asks her, what saying? Like, what did I say? And she's like, never mind, that's not important right now. So very funny that whatever Geralt yelled at the djinn was obviously not what he was led to believe it to be. Once Yennefer is caught up on what happened, the two of them go to Dandelion by way of a portal, and we know Geralt, man, he does not like his portals. He's like the moment that Yennefer brings it up, he's like, do we really have to? Like, it's not far. We can walk over there. And Yennefer tells him that if she was seen on the streets, that people would just literally throw rocks at her and they would throw insults at her way. She's not liked in this town at all. And it's definitely gonna get a lot worse for her later on in this story. In terms of her perception in the town of Rhine, it's only gonna go downhill. But yeah, she says that the people are not too crazy about her here, and don't worry that her portals are safe. So she reassures Geralt, and then he's like, okay. So he grabs onto her, and then the both of them jump inside the portal, and they go over to where Dandelion is currently staying at. So they're at the house where Geralt had left Dandelion, and he's waiting downstairs with the elf that he met in the beginning of the story, Chitterdian, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Again, I feel like I said it in two different ways from the beginning of this video to now. I feel like I said it in two completely different ways, but whatever. So yeah, the two of them are waiting downstairs for Yennefer to finish whatever she's doing with Dandelion to restore his voice. All they know is she told them no matter what, do not come up here. Like, just leave her to her work. So yeah, the two of them are waiting downstairs when all of a sudden Yennefer comes out and specifically asks for Geralt to come upstairs. Obviously Geralt doesn't hesitate and he goes right up. And she tells Geralt that Dandelion's going to be okay. Like, he's gonna make it out of this just fine. And Geralt obviously thanks her. Like, you have my gratitude, Yennefer. Can I check on him? And she's like, of course, go in, go ahead. So Geralt steps inside the door to check on Dandelion, and he sees his friend sleeping with the most idiotic grin on his face, man. Because right now he's dreaming of some girls, so he's just like sleeping with like this really, really dumb smile on his face. I bet you Geralt's just like face palming. He's like, God damn it, Dandelion. But yeah, he kind of confirms that, you know, Dandelion looks alright. He looks to be in good spirits. But he notices a like pattern, like a weird pattern traced along the floor. And he knew that there was definitely some magic going on with the pattern on the floor. And then he turns to Yennefer. He's like, Yennefer, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's a trap. For what? Oh, it's for you. For the time being, of course. And really quickly, it's important to note that she's doing this because she wants the seal for the djinn. When Geralt and her were talking in the bathhouse, Geralt had told her that Dandelion had the seal of the Jinn. He lied to her because actually he's the one who has it. In this present moment, Yennefer actually searched Dandelion and like searched in his mind as well if he knew where the seal was, and he had no clue, its whereabouts. And it turns out that Geralt is the one who actually has it. And as payment, she requires it, she wants it, but she won't tell, of course she won't tell Geralt why she needs it. It's none of his business, right? So no matter, Geralt's like, here, you can have it, I don't want it. It's a sign of good faith, so here, you can have it. Let me just get Dandelion out of here, and I'll come back and I'll repay you the rest of your payments, your installments. Because this pattern that Yennefer has drawn on the ground, where Dandelion is kind of laying in, there's some pretty evil shit that's about to happen, man. Because this is a pattern used for summoning demonic things, right? So Geralt is pleading with her. He's like, look, let me just get Dandelion out of here. He's had a pretty rough time, right? So let me just get him out of here, and then I'll come back and I'll repay you the rest. I'll do anything that you want. I'll give you the rest of your installments, anything that you ask of me, for, as a sign of good faith for curing Dandelion. But of course she doesn't care about that. She wants to keep Dandelion here. She still needs him. And then for a little while, Geralt and Yen start going back and forth at each other, when suddenly Geralt just stops talking, like he's unable to talk. And then Yennefer's like, oh, I was wondering when it would finally hit you. Basically this spell that basically like makes Geralt paralyzed like a stone statue. Like he couldn't, it says in the book that he couldn't even move like one of his toes. So Yennefer like paralyzes Geralt, and I absolutely love the last little speech that she gives, before she kind of like takes over Geralt. She like puts him under this spell and makes him like her slave for a little bit. Before she does that, I love this little speech that she gives. Don't struggle, my little witcher, she smiled spitefully. It's pointless. You've got a strong will and quite a bit of a resistance to magic, but you can't contend with me and my spells. And don't act out of farce for me. Don't try to charm me with your hard and insolent masculinity. You are the only one to think you're insolent and hard. You'd do anything for me in order to save your friend, even without spells at that. You'd pay any price. You'd lick my boots even, and maybe something else too if I unexpectedly wished to amuse myself. And Geralt remained silent. Yennefer was standing in front of him, smiling and fiddling with the obsidian star sparkling with diamonds pinned to her velvet ribbon. I already knew what you were like, she continued, after exchanging a few words with you in Beau's bedroom, and I knew what form of payment I'd demand from you. My accounts in Ryan could be settled by anyone, including the elf, but you're the one who's going to do it because you have to pay me. For your insolence, for the cold way you look at me, for the eyes which fish for every detail, for your stony face and sarcastic tone of voice, for thinking that you could stand face to face with Yennefer of Vengerberg and believe her to be full of self-admiration and arrogance, a calculating witch, while staring at her soapy tits. Pay up, Geralt of Rivia. Yennefer grabbed his hair with both hands and kissed him violently on the lips, sinking her teeth into them like a vampire. The medallion on his neck quivered, and it felt to Geralt as if the chain was shrinking and strangling him. Something blazed in his head with a terrible humming filled his ears. He stopped seeing the sorceress's violent eyes and fell into darkness. He was kneeling, and Yennefer was talking to him in a gentle, soft voice. You remember? Yes, my lady. It was his own voice. So go and carry out my instructions. At your command, my lady. You may kiss my hand. Thank you, my lady. He felt himself approach her on his knees. 10,000 bees buzzed in his hand. Her hand smelt of lilac and gooseberries. Lilac and gooseberries, lilac and gooseberries, a flash, and then darkness. And then he saw the elf's face. Geralt, what's the matter with you? Geralt, where are you going? I have to. His own voice. I have to go. Oh gods, look at his eyes! No, Aerodil, don't touch him. Don't try to stop him. Out of his way. Get out of his way. The scent of lilac and gooseberries. Lilac and gooseberries. A door. The explosion of sunlight. It's hot, humid. The scent of lilac and gooseberries. There's going to be a storm, he thought. And that was his last thought. So essentially, after promising Geralt that Dandelion would be safe, that she's not going to hurt him, right? During this entire conversation, she had this spell kind of hanging over Geralt, slowly kind of picking away at him. And eventually the spell does break him down to a point where he can't move, right? That's the spell that paralyzed him completely, but it took time to actually work on his body. So then Geralt's paralyzed. She ends up getting the seal, the Jinn seal away from him. But then she also says, I have a couple favors in this town that I need to be repaid, and you're the perfect person to go repay those favors. And I always keep my promises. Whenever I make a promise, I always intend to keep them, or I always do keep them. So she basically makes Geralt into her, like, errand boy, I guess. She's like, you're going to be the one who goes out there to fulfill these promises that I've made. So then she goes over to kiss him, and it puts him into this, like, trance that basically makes him like a zombie, that does her bidding, that does whatever that she asks him to do. And it's like reading this and I'm like knowing where they end up, and I'm like mind blown because I just cannot believe that this is how their relationship started. Like, it is incredible to me that this is how it started for them. Yennefer basically like taking like advantage of this poor guy. Like, I feel bad for Geralt at this point. Like, the man already doesn't care much for you know, sorcerers and sorceresses. And he probably knew that he was going to get into some trouble with this sorceress. But that didn't matter. Like, this was all for Dandelion's sake, that he was willing to put himself out there like that. And man, like, it just got way worse than he could have ever imagined. He definitely did not expect any of this to be happening to him. So like, I feel for him, man. I really do. And the best part is that this is only one half of the story. In the next video, we will talk about everything that happens from Yennefer controlling Geralt all the way to the end of the last wish. Just because if I keep going with this is gonna be a like hour and 30-minute long video, because you guys know me at this point. I talk way too much. I like to ramble on about all things The Witcher. So I don't know, I feel like it would be a lot more digestible if, you know, I put out like 2 30 to 40-minute video episodes instead of you guys having to sit through like an hour and 30-minute video. I don't know, I feel like that's better. Tell me if I'm wrong. I know if it was me, I definitely would not want to sit through that long of a video, but that's what this is shaping up to be. So yeah, I don't know, I'm trying to make it a little bit more approachable, a little bit more digestible. So yeah, definitely tune in for part 2, guys. We'll talk about the rest of The Last Wish. It's fun, man. It's gonna be great. Anything that involves Geralt and Yennefer, like, let's be honest, it's awesome. It's always awesome. But yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching so much. Like, your support, the fact that people even watch these videos, like I say all the time, it's astounding. It's mind-blowing to me. Makes me so happy because I love talking about The Witcher. So the fact that people watch these videos is so cool to me. But yeah, as always, like, comment, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.